From next week, beginning Monday, we don't expect any vendor on the streets. Whether you are selling whatever merchandise, we don't expect any vendor on the streets. We don't expect any trader to display merchandise on the walkways. Even if the shop is yours, you are supposed to display your things inside your shop.
From January, Uganda has been going through a very high-pressure dynamic change and transformation of the major cities: Kampala, Entebbe, Jinja, Mbale, Mbara, Fort Portal, Soreti, all the way to Mbale and to the north in Lira. And of course, the Gulu, like every place in the city has been going through a very high pressure of transformation. Now, I want to take you guys back to one of the reasons behind all this pressure. AFCON, which is the biggest football tournament, is going to be held in Uganda, Tanzania, Kenya. And Uganda being among those hosting AFCON has been put into pressure of transforming the perception of very many people about Uganda. Now, if you are a very big fan of travel vloggers, which I am, very many whites who have been coming to Uganda are being criticized in Uganda for being very chaotic when it comes to Kampala, very busy streets, a lot of population, very dirty, and all that stuff. And now, if you critically look at what's really going on with KCCA, they're really trying to change the perspective that people have put on Uganda, especially Kampala. Basically, the major towns like Jinja, is first of all a capital hub of East Africa on tourism. So all these major towns have been forced to transform how they look, coming to waste management, how they're organized, like all the things you're seeing right now going on is because of this pressure of AFCON. Now, AFCON, of course, is one of the biggest football tournaments in Africa. Now, we expect a lot of Africans and a lot of tourists coming into Uganda, which means that the perception of Uganda is really going to change. So we need to transform basically how Uganda looks. Now, guys, before I even go into detail, the only thing I want to say is that development comes at a cost. There is no development that comes without tears, without property loss, without people losing a lot of jobs, without people losing. There's just a lot of pain that comes with it, but we have no choice because a poor person can never make a city urbanized. So, which means that if you have property around a city and you have space, probably you bought, probably you're there illegally, and of course you know that everyone has family. These are fathers, are mothers, these are brothers raising siblings. We know that there's a lot of pain going on. Kids are at school, there's a lot of pressure, but there's no choice. We have to urbanize the place. So people are being pushed away from the cities. Now, taking it back to what really went on is that first of all, KC began by removing street vendors. Now, I want you guys to basically understand something about street vendors. Now, wholesalers, all those guys were in, of course, the well-organized arcades, were saying that those street vendors were taking their clients because these guys are directly next to the clients. A client can never have time to get into the arcade because things are already on the street. So, and remember, these guys sell things at a very cheap price. But I want to give you a little bit of insight into the street vendors because personally, I used to really do a little bit of hustle on the street. But of course, I never used to sell on the street. But I used to know what's really going on. So on the street, what was going on is that a majority of the wholesalers would give the street vendors merchandise to sell on the street because it's hard for clients to come into the arcade and access your arcade because you can go into an arcade and there's so many people, like the same shops, shoes, clothes, boutiques. So the only trick was that get street vendors who will sell your property outside, even if they sell at a wholesale price. That's the reason that's why that me personally, I used to deal in shoes and clothes. I would never go into the arcade because the same price of the shoes or clothes in the arcade, you'd find it at the same price with a street vendor out here. So I would buy things from the street vendors. So these wholesalers had their own street vendors who were selling their things. So this really made selling for other people very, very hard because these guys are selling things at a very cheap price, incredibly cheap, because they only want like 100 shillings, 1,000 shillings. And remember, Kampala had a very big swarm of people coming in hundreds of thousands per day, and they pass through the streets, and these guys are able to sell the things off the street. So when you look at the removal of street vendors, this basically meant that Kampala had air to breathe. Like right now, when you go into Kampala cities, like no, right now when you go into Kampala streets, you're able to like navigate very easily because there are no street vendors. Because these guys are all over the pathway, you could not really pass through. So that was the first initiative by KCCA. The second one is removal of kiosks. Now, a majority of these kiosks, I want to also give you the insight into this because man, you guys have been through all this shit, bro. Like I've not really had a kiosk, but I've had friends who have had the things, and I know the process of putting one there. So what happens is that many of these major, of course, legally built buildings, those major buildings, arcades and everything, those guys offer a small fee for people to build their kiosks and put in front of the arcades of those commercial buildings in front. So you pay a fee, or it could be like monthly for having the space, monthly, weekly. Someone can go get that container, those things your big guys have been seeing, the MTNs, the containers having maybe like be like sweets, maybe phone accessories, gadgets, and all that stuff. So these guys will come in, and then but the guys, those containers are very expensive. Most of them are like 1.8, 2.5, depending on the quality. Some can even go to up to 5 million or plus, depending on the size and quality of material you're using for making them. So these guys would like get that, acquire that, and put it there, and then pay a monthly fee because you're using someone's piece of land, which of course was illegal because that was a road reserve. Where the guys put these kiosks, you must understand that that is a road reserve. So basically, you're on government land, and you're illegally there trading on the perception that I'm paying the landlord. So guys, there's been a very rampant demolishing of these kiosks and of course illegal trading buildings. Just know, as long as a house has like even an extra thing into a road reserve, they are removing everything. So guys, I want to take you guys back, of course, back to AFCON, because I'm writing everything back to AFCON and also changing the perception about Kampala. Guys, these guys want to try and change how the city looks, how the major towns look. They want to remove congestion. Kampala is very populated, extremely populated, and this creates a very big issue on security. This creates a very big issue on taxes because a majority of these illegal traders are not really licensed. A majority of them don't pay taxes the right way. So there's been a lot of losses to KCCA, to URA, and of course to individuals because of insecurity. Remember, if there's a crowd, it's very easy for guys to navigate and like pickpocket. Someone can still rob from you and pass through the crowd. You can't really access them because they've really navigated through the crowd and you can't really catch them or scream out. So this thing has come at a cost. The other thing that KCCA has been doing right now is that the borders are supposed to be demarcated where they're going to be on stages. Now, the registered stages are about 929. I'm not sure the figure, but it's 900 something, 929 stages around the campus, like around the city divisions. And then it is very, guys, it's sorry about the call, guys. It's very shocking that there are only 27,870 registered borders. That's according to a post on Daily Monitor. There are only 27,870 borders registered out of over 300,000 borders here in Kampala. So that is a very big number of borders. This creates very high congestion in the city. So guys, just to make sure Kampala looks urbanized, just to make sure Kampala looks organized, to avoid being ashamed, to avoid global shame, KCCA is doing whatever it takes. Uganda is doing whatever it takes to decongest these major towns. All the way to Jinja, Mbale, Gulu, the same thing is happening. Kiosks, apart from borders, but kiosks are being demolished. They call them kiosks. Those containers on the roadside that are not really like legally put are being removed. Anything you've added on your building, like let's say a shed or something, is being demolished because it was never in the building plan. Now, I would love to give you guys the emotional side of the story. A majority of the Ugandans live off daily earnings. A majority of these borders, these guys who run these small kiosks, those small shops, that are like are built. Those guys sell tomatoes and everything. Most of those guys live off daily earnings, which means that if they don't work, they don't get to feed their families. They don't get to provide transport or basic needs for their kids to go to school. So this move has come so quickly. I think a majority of these announcements take about like I think a week or two, about like a week. I'm not so sure, but it's so fast. A week or two for someone to like remove whatever they put there and relocate to a designated area or get a legally built place for commercial use. So I want to give you guys a small insight of what's really going on. Now, guys, a majority of these people are not going to be able to take their kids to school. Because remember, if you've been running a small food shop, like selling food by the roadside or a small kiosk, and then you're selling it by the road by the roadside and you're eating daily earnings, and then it has been demolished. It means that you're not going to be able to afford for your kids, of course, tuition or school fees, or even just yourself. You're not going to be able to take care of yourself or even parent, which means that you're going to be forced to remove your child from that location back to the village. Now remember, most of these people don't even save. Most of these people don't even save. Majority of people live on debts. This year opened up with street vendors being removed. Those are still healing from their traumatic experience. Those guys are still struggling with putting kids back to school. Then there comes the ones already established, the MTN people, the Airtel people, those guys who deal in beverages. Because the majority of them are dealing such things as like a small gadget shop, selling shoes. A majority of them dealing that, and then a few dealing like selling of food and stuff like that. Now, a majority of these people are not going to be able to maintain the lifestyle of their kids. So which means that the majority of them are going to be forced to remove their kids off school and then take them back to the village, of course, the rural areas where they could not do business from, hoping that they would find hope in the urbanized areas where there's a bigger population and high purchasing power. So this is going to be very traumatizing, but I must say that a majority of the people might end up going into very bad things. I don't know, like a majority of people are going to just end up selling bodies. I'm telling the truth, because if you don't choose to go back to the village, which means that you're going to end up in the illegal things. And it is what it is. For the guys, the majority of them have to really go back to the village, because I don't see very many guys doing any of that. So this is going to create a very high depression state among the people. This is going to cause a lot of kids drop out of school. Yet we all know that schools need to have kids. These kids have to study. If we want to transform Uganda, we need an urbanized population. We need a transformed population. We need an educated population. This is when development really comes in. You have to educate the population. But if the population is going to drop out of school, then it means that you're actually living on a time bomb. A majority of these people are going to end up becoming very big problems in society because they didn't go to school and because they have to make sure they survive. No one is going to accept to starve. No one really does that. So all I'm trying to say is that I wish there was a better way of doing this and not doing it on pressure. This would have like given people like a few, like let's say maybe 2 months or 3 months for guys to really organize, because a majority of these people don't have money. A majority of them are living on debt. A majority of them have so many kids. A majority, of course, I know people are going to be like, it's not a problem, no stuff. But bro, I'm speaking in the shoes of a father who has kids looking at him and he has to feed them, and now he can't because things have been turned apart. So before I end the vlog, for the borders guys, it's tight. Guys, the borders are requested to have helmets. Then they are requested to have reflectors. These clothes they put on, these green ones with reflectors. You're supposed to have an helmet, a reflector, insurance, like third-party insurance. You're supposed to have, what else are you supposed to have? You're supposed to have a permit. And then you must be registered in a registered stage that border borders are supposed to be in. So I'm just looking at 300,000 border borders trying to get registered in 2 weeks. Guys, bro, this shit is tight. Eh? I can't even sit down and think about it like straight. Bro, people are going to suffer. Shit is tight. Like, wow. Hey. Ah, yeah, yeah, yeah. Wait. Like, honestly, the truth is that I'm looking at my brothers, I'm looking at fathers, I'm looking at uncles, I'm looking at so many people out there who haven't really gone through the system legally. It's just going to be very hard to keep up with providing for your family and then keeping up with the pressure of getting registration. Because I also bet that these registrations, all the things come with money. So brothers don't have money. To even make it worse, I don't even know. I think I'm going to do a story on this. To even make it worse, a majority of these borders have just gotten bikes. They're paying for bikes. Many of them have bikes on loan. So that first clear the loan and then fix what's going on and then pay rent and then pay tuition for their kids and then pay for feeding and then get registration licenses and then pay for insurance. Oh my god, shit is tight, bro. I've come to the end of the vlog, and guys, I just hope you subscribe because whatever is coming next is going to blow your mind. Ciao, guys.